And that's what I think somebody, at least through my lens, because in my work on myself and in my work with my clients, my two pillars are peace and sovereignty. That's what I want the people that cross my path to feel. So I never see anyone as a victim or as a villain, like that, nobody that I need to fight against or save from their own path. I see that in myself and I can offer that to everyone. And I believe that's really what somebody that is working toward balance, if not having achieved it at certain times, is this peace within themselves, not needing anyone in their exterior and nothing in their world to change for them to source their okayness, their peace.
Let's impact some men today. I think we're going to do a great job. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Modern Man Podcast, where we are here to connect men in pursuit of their potential. Join us as we embrace discomfort, cultivate community, and put wind in each other's sails. Now, before we jump into the episode, I want to urge you to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and share this podcast with somebody else that you want to build community with. Don't forget, for the men who are watching or listening, I encourage you to check out the Noble Knights group. It's a group of men where you could find the support, accountability, and mentorship you need to achieve your goals. Join us and become a part of a community of like-minded men on a mission to elevate their capacity for life. And as always, I'm excited to get some wind in our sails today from intuitive guide and inner transformation coach dedicated to helping others connect with their inner wisdom and true purpose. It's an honor to have Melissa Le Gette on the show. Melissa, thank you for taking the time today.
Hello, thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure. And before we jump into our conversation, which I know can get deep, I want to make sure that I give you an opportunity to introduce yourself to the audience. Talk to the folks, talk to the listeners and to the fellas. Let them know who you are, what you do, and then we can kind of unravel some of today's topic.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am, as you said, an intuitive guide. You could call me a psychic intuitive. But instead of using my intuitive gifts to future cast or kind of meet with people and be like, oh, this is what's going to happen down the road, I go into kind of your inner workings, your inner world. I like to say I descend into all that makes you you. So I very much focus
Mm,
on the subconscious realm, the patterns and programs that you picked up on in childhood, generationally, sometimes from past lives, if you really want to start to play in the woo. And I've been doing this work for over 2 years now. And when I started, I actually thought my focus was going to be working with mothers. So women that were mothers, women that wanted to become mothers. And through my own healing and my own inner journey with myself and within my marriage, I really started to focus on my masculine energy, the masculine energy within me, and how I was treating all of the men in my life, but mainly at the time, my husband. And I developed a deep reverence and respect for the masculine at that time. And
hmm.
through that work on myself, something started happening where I just started having husbands and partners of my clients reach out to me, being like, hey, do you do sessions for men? And I decided I did. And now I would say anywhere between like 50 to 65% of my clients are men.
Amazing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm And it doesn't surprise me because you do have a very welcoming energy and aura about yourself. So I believe you make a very safe place and a very welcoming place for people to work with you.
Thank you.
Um, what had you first focus on mothers? What had you first, I guess, go down the research and the rabbit hole of what was underneath the surface? Because so many of us, we get to a point where you might hear, Melissa, I've tried everything,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And I feel as I've done this class, I've taken this course, I've gone to therapy. At some point in time, I need to look under the hood,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not just what's conscious, but the subconscious. And I've just recently gone down the rabbit hole with Carl Jung, and
Yes.
I'll reference him in just
I
a little
love
bit.
Carl
But
Jung.
what got you down this rabbit hole to start with,
So I
Melissa?
actually have a master's degree in clinical psychology. That was my first career. And I've done everything that I do with my clients. I am able to hold the space for their transformation because I've done it on myself. So this is how I've dove into myself to create these shifts that have transformed and elevated my life. And when I was in graduate school, I remember just going down like a Carl Jung rabbit hole, several, in fact, and also the work of Dr. Bruce Lipton. I really enjoy. He really focuses on like your programming that you develop from the third trimester of pregnancy until around the age of 7, and there's also pivotal moments that happen between like 7 and 14 as well, and really the ways in which the subconscious runs the show. And when I started working with mothers, it's because when I knew I wanted to become a mother, that's when I really started looking at these intuitive gifts that I believe I was born with and I shut down in childhood. There was just
Mhm.
ways I think to be accepted, to be like, especially like in school, there were ways in which I didn't want to be like the weird girl. But when I
Yeah.
became a mother, I wanted to connect very deeply with my intuition because I wanted my intuition to guide me on that path. I wanted to value my own inner knowing as much as any outside opinion that I was bringing on. And for anyone that has become a parent, they know as soon as you're pregnant or you have a baby in your belly, you get nothing but outsider opinions about how that child
Oh
should be
yeah.
reared. And I wanted my voice to be the strongest. And that was the
Mm.
most transformational, pivotal thing I've done. And I wanted to shine that light for other women. And I also allowed, through this deep trust I've developed of myself and like my heart, my soul being my inner guidance, I allowed this path to unfold. And I couldn't ignore the call I had to really focus on men and work with men. And,
Mhm.
I know your audience knows if they listen to you just from the intro that we had before we started recording, men are suffering, they're struggling. I have a daughter right
Yeah.
now, and I've thought many times, how I would be doing this differently if I had a son. And I think I might be more worried if I had a son, just based on how boys are really struggling.
Yeah. I hear that. And I picked up on you mentioned working on the masculine within yourself, which obviously on the opposite, we can only imagine us as men have feminine within us as well. That intuitive energy. Yeah, I'm touching on the parenting aspect.
Hmm.
Yes, becoming a parent myself, heard a lot of outside opinions. But also through the research, finding out that as a man, I could be as nurturing and loving as my wife. I can
Yes,
step into that role of a nurturer as well as a protector, which was very expanding for me in my journey and definition and identity of how I view myself.
absolutely.
Um,
And that's actually, there's an elevation of the consciousness happening at this time. And what I'm seeing is more and more people are drawn to and are forming more of these multidimensional sacred unions with a partner. So I,
mhm,
I referenced the masculine in myself in healing my wounded masculine within me that allowed my feminine gifts to come online more strongly. So I have, or I strive for, this balance of the masculine feminine within myself. And that allows me to seek that same balance and harmony with my husband. So in our
mm,
natural states, I am the feminine in our marriage, and he really is that provider, protector role. And there's times where that shifts. Like he's a deeply intuitive man. He's very creative. And when he is in flow, when he is really needing to tap into that creativity to create, I step into the masculine in that dynamic. I allow him to be in that state of flow, of receiving, of surrender, and I can hold that divine masculine space. And I
mm.
believe that the relationships that I'm seeing more and more of people who are evolving, that are striving to heal and to seek more, that's what we're being able to step into. Is not this rigidity of this is my role and I cannot budge from it, but how do we flow? How do we ebb and flow together to find balance, to find harmony?
You mentioned the programming that can start as early as the third trimester of pregnancy into the first 7 years of
Hmm.
existence, right? All of these things that come into play. How does our early life programming impact us when we become adults and then we start emulating that masculine or that feminine energy in our relationships? I'm curious as to the root of all of this.
Yeah. So this is from the work of Dr. Bruce Lipton. This is where I'm getting these frames. But when we are third trimester, when our consciousness starts to come online until about 7 years of age, we are in a theta brainwave state. And we are really learning how to be human. So we're kind of just getting these programs that we're going to run the rest of our life. And this is where our thoughts about money are formed, our thoughts about love, our thoughts about safety, how lovable we are, how worthy we are. Every single time I work with a client, we're going back into that age range to make some shifts to be able to open them up for what they're consciously trying to pull into their life. And the more I've done this work, the more I really believe that all of our wounds stem back to what I believe is the mother wound, which is I am not lovable, or the father wound of I am not safe. And
Mm.
as a parent myself, I don't believe that you can parent a child and protect them from taking on any of these wounds, because I think that's part of it. Part of the reason why we come here to play in this earth space, to incarnate, is to evolve. And we evolve through overcoming these hardships by healing, by bringing love to these, quote, darker aspects of ourself. And the darkness really only amplifies the light. So we kind of need this wounding for our evolution. And I do it in such a way of like, I don't want to sit here and just have you blame your parents for everything that you might think is wrong with you. We hold,
Damn it, mama.
we hold
I
tremendous
mean, I love you, mama.
compassion and understanding and grace. Like they did the best they could. Their ceiling is now your floor for you to build upon, and just bringing conscious awareness to why you are the way you are, so that I think healing is just the ability to create space between trigger and response. So I've done a lot of work
Ooh.
around my money stories, my money wounds. So now when I am consciously expanding my capacity to bring in money and hold money, when I'm feeling that fear or that scarcity or that like contraction energy I used to feel around money, I now know how to hold that discomfort, breathe through it, and choose a different path. Like, this is how I'm going to go forward now. I'm not going to respond based on past me. I'm going to consciously choose my way forward. And that's what we're doing, is we're bringing conscious awareness to create the space to choose a different path forward.
Yeah, a former guest on the podcast, Zach Blakeney, I believe he quoted Carl Jung saying, I believe he says, um, as long as we leave this subconscious conscious, we'll live our lives and call it fate.
Yeah.
Something along
Until
the
we
lines,
bring
to
the
paraphrase.
unconscious
Yeah,
conscious, it will rule your life and you will call it fate. And
correct. And
everyone
so many of
listening
us,
to this right now knows someone that has grown up and become their mother or their father. And that is because the programs are strong. And there are moments now when I see it in myself. Like I respond and I'm like, oh, that's my mom coming out of my mouth. And I love that and I adore that. And there are other things that I don't really want that from her or my dad. And it's not because I don't love them and respect them and value them. It's because I'm choosing a different way forward. So I bring awareness to all the reasons why I am the way I am, and I respond the way that I respond.
yeah, I'm learning. It's all about eating the meat and leaving the bones behind. And my parents did a fantastic job, and I am very much a lot like my father. And my father was first male role model in my life, and the longest standing male role model in my life. I'm thankful to still have him and call him for counsel. But to your point, I see the qualities of my father that I adore and I love, and then I also see some of those qualities and some of the things I've picked up on that I'm changing
Mm-hmm.
in myself that I don't necessarily want to perpetuate or carry on. And that's not to say I don't want to be my father.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to be my own man. It's just what might have served him doesn't necessarily serve me.
Absolutely.
And reminder to that for anybody that's watching, I know we talk a lot about child work. I actually keep childhood pictures of myself
Mm-hmm.
near my vision board and on my whiteboard at the desk because I do like to look at little Ted sometimes and remind himself he's going to be okay.
Yes.
You mentioned, I believe you said the mother womb was the I am not lovable. The father womb is the I am not safe.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know where in between falls in the I am not good enough, but that was a perpetuating thought that continued in my head for so
That
long
is my
where I get to
core
remind little
wound.
Ted
I
that
am
he's
not good
good.
enough.
Really?
Yes.
Samesies. Virtual high five.
Hey,
Trauma bonded.
recovering
But,
perfectionist over here. um,
but,
I believe that they
talk about that.
also they intermingle nothing is black and white. So they kind of constantly like they'll wind together because I believe my core wound of I am not good enough comes from trying to secure both love and safety. Like if I decided as a
Mm,
very young girl that if I was the overachiever, the golden child in my family, that's how I could secure love from both my mother and my father. And my father was the one in that masculine role that I felt, safe around. So it's a little bit of both, and not everything is very like clear cut. Everything kind of blends in and weaves together.
yeah. I want to reference back to Carl Jung
Hmm.
and Carl Jung's work in, I might pronounce it incorrectly. Is it Anima and Animus? Are you familiar with
Yes,
Anima and
I
Animus,
am.
where he emphasized the importance of integrating masculine and feminine aspects within the self to achieve individuation and
Hmm.
wholeness? So there's a duality within us,
Yes.
and embracing the two gives us that full, complete side. I want to speak to the my audience, the men who are watching, those hard men who are like, nah, bro, I'm too strong, I'm too rigid. They don't have that soft touch, or they haven't embraced
Mhm.
some of their feminine. I'd love for you to touch on the importance of becoming whole to harmonize both the feminine and masculine energies within.
Yeah, it's also the feminine is your ability to be creative, to create. And a lot of people in our society have this, it's the program of you are here to be productive and only achieve in productive ways. And that doesn't leave a lot of space for us to kind of soften into that creativity to receive. That is there's an innate desire in the masculine to overcome, and I always honor that. And I believe that when you recognize that's within you, that's within me and my masculine side. That's what building a business is for me. I want to overcome, I want to set goals, and I want to demolish them. And you really realizing that the way in which you can do that, you can discern and focus that desire to overcome, that's only ever strengthened if you can also be led by your heart, which is that soul connection, that feminine connection. I believe a man that is in full alignment is a man that is led by his mind, his heart, and his gut. And you really want to be able to tap into that part of you and have that be a part of your drive forward, your discernible, aligned actions.
If iron sharpens iron, so does one man sharpen another. But if you're a man and you're alone or listening to this, then who sharpens you? What's going on, guys? Ted Phaeton here, host of the Modern Man podcast, also founder of the Noble Knights Mastermind Group. And I'm just out here encouraging you to find your circle. Maybe you're on a personal growth journey and nobody around you understands the new mentality that you're possessing. That's okay. You can find an online community that will pour into you, will navigate your goals and navigate your obstacles, share their experiences, resources, and more. Join the Noble Knights Mastermind Group and try us out for free to tap into a community of men helping each other scale up and reach their goals.
Check out themodernmanpodcast.com.
Yeah. How does that manifest in our everyday lives? So if someone's listening, watching, and they're thinking to themselves, maybe their relationship might not be the way they want it to be. Perhaps they're not in their career where they want to be. They would have thought they would have gotten the promotion by now, or would have been farther in their career by now. For any man listening who feels like they're operating under their standard, how does that wholeness and that embodiment of the masculine and feminine help complete their lives on the external?
So I think a man that is, and this is actually the work of David Data. Are you familiar with him?
Yeah.
So David Data talks about the three stages of the masculine. The first is very self-focused, and the masculine always seeks freedom, and where he is not free, he feels caged. So in that self-focused way, the man might be focused on how do I get financial freedom? How do I get freedom from, I was just with a client, like, how do I get freedom from my past, the mistakes that I've made? And in that second stage, he focuses on the container. So, how do I, like in my marriage or in my partnership, how do I free us from this problem, this perpetual fight that we're having? So, elevating up
Mhm.
from self, but focusing on the container. And the third stage of the masculine is realizing that he is free. When he's connected to his heart and connected to his soul, he is freedom. He doesn't need anything around him to change in order for him to be free. And I believe that a man reaches that stage through balancing and harmonizing with both core aspects of himself. Just like with me, in order to fully step into the gifts of my feminine, which are my intuition, my inner guidance, I needed to create that feeling of safety. And I got this in myself for that feminine to come online. And a man is
Yeah.
only ever going to be able to bring more presence, more attention, more protection, more providership to his woman, to his family, to himself, if he accesses that other side, that softer, receptive side.
Mm.
Does that answer your question?
Oh, it very much does. And before moving forward, I'm like resisting the urge to keep moving forward because I do want to back up and make sure I acknowledge the opposite side because um, some of why I started this podcast. I'm not trying to make some enemies, but I'll keep it real. I think society as a whole, it's hard to find more of those traditional edgy men.
Those traditional what?
And I do think more of the traditional edgy men,
Mhm.
right? Like we could have overcorrected in some regard. I'm speaking to maybe some men who have embraced their feminine, but their spouse might be unfulfilled because this man hasn't fully stepped into his masculine in certain areas
Yeah.
of life.
So if you
What
want to talk
about
about
that other
creating
side?
enemies, I believe that's actually
Let's
on
do
the
it.
woman. I believe it is essential for a woman to respect and trust her man and allow him the opportunities to fail, to allow him to lead the home. And many women have actually this safety masculine wound of I am not safe. So therefore they try to control. And every time you are in relationship with a man, you either can
Hmm.
have control or the illusion of control, you never really get it, or you can have intimacy. So again and again and again with my husband, I'm always coming back to, am I right now trying to choose to control the situation, to tell him how to be a man, to how to run his company, how to do X, Y, and Z? Or am I going to pull back and I'm going to deepen the intimacy, deepen the connection with him? And now that that's in my awareness, every single time I'm human and I choose the control, I'm always like, damn it, that's not how I wanted it to go. I don't feel any better. We both feel much worse. So time and time
Yeah.
again now, I have learned to only ever reflect my respect for him, my trust in his capacity to be a man, to make choices, to provide for me, to protect the home. And
Hmm.
that's always just paid off, like just
Yeah.
tenfold.
How can a man step into that in his relationship if he's in a situation where his wife doesn't relinquish control, or not even relinquishing control, is more or less always trying to steer the environment
Mhm.
and not allowing him to take the lead, even if he is trying to? How can a man maybe tiptoe around that topic
I
or
wouldn't tiptoe
approach that
around it.
topic?
I would honestly, because I've worked with a lot of men in this situation where, like I was saying to you before, I don't believe that if a man is in a partnership or a marriage with a woman, if she is not trusting him or not fully believing that he is trustworthy, that man is never going to reach his full potential. And I believe that if a man is feeling constantly kind of cut down or disrespected, what happens actually on a biological level when a woman criticizes a man is a man withdraws from her. His testosterone
Mm,
decreases. And in those arguments and fights, the woman's testosterone increases. So they're kind of at a biological level. The man is pulling away, withdrawing into himself, and she's getting more and more like, why aren't you doing what I want? Like, who's going to make me feel safe right now? So there's
yeah,
just like a
yeah.
mismatch going on right there. And if you have a goal or a dream for yourself and you feel like your partner is not supporting it, I believe you tell her, I want to do this for myself so I can show up more for you, so I can show up more present, more loving. I can provide whatever that dream is. And
Hmm.
I need to feel like you support this. And if you don't, just please don't share that with me. Like, I need you to just
Yeah,
not bring those critiques and criticisms here. Please find someone else in your life that you can bring those to.
yeah, yeah. Don't at me.
No,
I don't want to hear
I very much
it.
believe in telling people how to love you, especially those of us that are on this path of I've been with my husband 8 years. I think I've been 10 different women like on this path of evolution that I'm on. I very much believe in like telling people how to best support you, how to best love you, especially if you're someone like me that changes all the time and becomes a new version of themselves. So
Yeah.
speak it. If you know how she's like, treating you and speaking to you isn't working, first of all, remind her that she chose you. She chose to be your partner. And she has a
Mhm.
choice. She can be in or she can be out. And if she's going to be in with her, you would love her too, hopefully. Then this is how she can show up for you. So you can achieve your goals. So then you can show up even better for her.
Yeah. Man, I love that. A lot of this podcast, I always talk about personal responsibility, right? Which is why I focus on how can the guys approach this? How can we broach this topic? And what we've discussed and what we've come to the conclusion of men understand your vision, understand your
Yes.
values, and establish proper boundaries.
And it
Those
is
proper
proper
boundaries
boundaries. And it
is
is so sexy for a woman to hear from a man, I got this. I got you.
yeah.
My husband his first company was a product development company. And I remember I just bought myself a new pair of glasses. Like, and talking about inner child, inner teen, for some reason as a teen, I like loved Burberry and I splurged and I bought myself a pair of Burberry glasses and they were too tight and they were giving me headaches. And I brought them to my husband to like fix them. And he started doing something that was like scaring me, like he was going to break them. And I started again to tell him, this guy with decades of product development under his sleeve, like how to do the thing, how to be the man. And he just like stopped and looked at me and was like, I got this. And I was like, ooh, you do got this. And he sure did. When I shut my mouth, that man stepped up, fixed my thing. It's hot. Like, we love it. Like, literally put us in our place. I got this. You trust me. Let me lead. And we do. And we love it.
Yeah. Fellas, y'all taking
You
notes?
taking
Y'all
notes.
taking notes? this is this is actually the perfect topic because we did record a podcast. It came out a few months ago from when people are listening to this, but it was literally on boundaries. And randomly, Talk one night was telling my wife about the podcast and how I was a recovering nice guy, people pleaser, always doing what people wanted, and she was shocked because her exact response was like, "What? You have no problem telling people no and setting boundaries. You have no problem telling me no." And her immediate follow up after that was a smirk, a smile, and then lean in for a kiss. And because, like I said, our boundaries, us having that structure, it turns our partners on.
Yes. Yes. The masculine desire to overcome often comes with this, like the masculine sets the container. And the best metaphor for this is the masculine is the riverbank and the feminine is the river that flows through it. And women really seek that container from their man throughout the day. And I think my favorite example of this is I think most men really don't care as much as the woman, like what you eat. Like women, I think, have much more of an emotional relationship with food. And time again, when I've asked my husband, like, what do you want for dinner? He's like, I don't care. You know, you're the one that cares. So why don't you choose? And in those moments, I didn't realize what I was actually turning to him for was like, just give me an answer because that's actually the container. Because if you say, I want salmon, I can then be like, oh, I don't want that. So I'm going to go do this. Or, hey, that's a good idea. I do. So it's these ways in which we're turning to throughout the day to just make the choice, like set the container. And then we have free will. We can just be like, I want that. I don't want that. Again, just set it. And that's what the masculine really, that drive to overcome is to kind of keep the chaos out of the container and then to contain the chaos that can often be their home. So women are much more emotional than their men. And we actually rely on our masculine to, like our masculine within ourselves or within our partner to come back into alignment. Like, so we can experience
Mhm.
the highs and lows of our emotionality. And then we come back. I always call my husband my exhale. Like he is my calm. He is where I go to
Mhm.
ground and to come back to center. And you were talking about, I think you used the word duality. I used the word
Yeah.
polarity, like the masculine, feminine polarity, both within myself, but then within my partnership. And when we are in that polarity, I think there's a lot more intimacy and playfulness.
Mm. I want to pull back up research in terms of it's research from the Institute of the Neotic Sciences discusses the growing global awareness of feminine energy,
Hmm.
emphasizing collaboration, intuition, and emotional intelligence as pivotal qualities for societal
Hmm.
evolution. Um, as we're talking about this duality, you said something earlier that piqued my interest of when your husband is in his feminine and you hold that masculine.
Hmm.
Um, what would that look like for folks listening? Any creators, entrepreneurs? We have a lot of businessmen who listen to this podcast, and I myself know when I need to set up my whole deep work and get into my flow and get into my creative state. There's a little routine that I have, a little ritual, perhaps a little too much, but I'd be interested in to know what that looks like for you and your family in terms of switching roles per se or switching that energy.
Yeah. So a lot of the way in which I really try to nurture the intimacy in my marriage throughout the day is I often go, my husband and I both work from home, and I often turn to him to just kind of show him and remind him that I need him. Like, can you please use your muscles to open this jar for me? Like, and it kind of sounds silly, but it is this way in which I'm just, again, relinquishing control and please, like I need you. And this is like a little way in which I can show you that. And when he's in that state, when he needs to be in that state, I then see myself as the one that's holding the container. So, whereas if, something was going on with my daughter, I might have pulled him in. If he needs to be in that state, I'm the one setting the container. I'm the one holding the boundary with her. And I am the one making the decisions. Like I don't kind of go and interrupt that flow as much.
Mhm.
Um, and then there's times when I allow him to kind of just bring me his stress, what he's working through. And if I'm in my feminine when he's doing that, I have the tendency to amplify because that's the feminine by its nature amplifies whatever the masculine brings. So going back to metaphors, the man brings a seed, she gives him a bloodline. And there's times when if my husband is working through something and he needs to just come to me and talk about it, if I'm in my feminine, I might just ramp up that stress. So I literally, when I switch into my masculine, I see it as like I straighten my spine and like I can hold whatever he's bringing and I don't need to create stories about it. I don't need to like amplify it. I can just hold it and allow him to speak it, process it, and move on. And he's done that in
Yeah.
the past when I haven't really like switched into my masculine and I just, again, I like ramp it up and it's just my noticing my ability. How I respond to him in both states is really what's prominent
Mhm.
for me.
Yeah. What are signs of someone being in balance, perhaps? What are signs of somebody who might have fully embraced their masculine and feminine sides, can um, hold space, can create when necessary, can engage and interact with the world in an effective and focused manner?
Mm-hmm.
What does that look like to the person who, let's say, works with you and then comes out the other side? And I say a journey, right? I don't think I'll ever be done healing
No,
and
you're
working on
never
myself.
done.
I'll
It's
keep it real.
it's a
But let's
constant.
say I've reached a checkpoint. What does that checkpoint look like?
To me, I believe it is a hallmark of healing for me is peace and sovereignty. So I don't need anyone to see the world the way that I do in order for me to be okay, in order for me to find peace. And it's kind of like going back to the masculine, what we were talking about from David Data, that freedom. Like I can source that freedom, and the feminine is love. So I can have love for everyone on my path, no matter what they're doing. And I don't need them to change anything about what they're doing in order for me to feel free, to feel okay, to feel at peace. And I'm also human, so I falter and my pain body comes back online. I work again and again and again at some of these programs, but my ability now to notice when an outdated version of me is trying to run the show and shift and hold the space for whatever needs to be brought to my awareness in that time. I now know how to navigate when I do falter. And if I am triggered, if I do have like, well, you need to change this because this is not okay, I then can always
Yeah.
pull it back. I'm like, no, it's never about that person. It's only ever about me. And that's what I think somebody, at least through my lens, because in my work on myself and in my work with my clients, my two pillars are peace and sovereignty. That's what I want the people that cross my path to feel. So I never see anyone as a victim or as a villain, like that, nobody that I need to fight against or save from their own path. I see that in myself and I can offer that to everyone. And I believe that's really what somebody that is working toward balance, if not having achieved it at certain times, is this peace within themselves, not needing anyone in their exterior and nothing in their world to change for them to source their okayness, their peace.
Yeah. It's a beautiful thing, right? I say we're either in a storm, just getting out of one, heading into one. Of course, the meteorologist references are there, but being in an area, my current season of peace has been bliss,
Mm-hmm.
comfort, joy, and one of those I have been preaching on this podcast to other men. You can have peace in the home, and men, you can have peace within, because sometimes the loudest challengers to our peace is the voices within our own head.
Yeah.
Um,
And
when men come to work with you, oh,
I was
please
going to say, to
elaborate.
me, peace is actually full presence with whatever's happening. It doesn't mean you're just in a state of calm, non reactivity, because that's not peace for me. Like, I'm here to live my life, to respond to my life. So if there's a
Hmm.
tragedy, I'm going to plummet into the depths of my grief. And I know I'll come back out of that on the other side. And in working with polarity, I always understand that if you want to experience more joy over here, you have to then know what it's like to be in grief or in pain or in suffering. We're going to move through everything in this human experience. And it's not to try to shelter ourselves or protect ourselves from that. It's knowing that whatever's coming your way, you got this. Like, you're going to be able to navigate it and get through it. And it's all part of the experience.
Yeah. We're the bird on the branch. The bird is not confident in the ability of the branch to hold its weight. It's confident in its wings to fly
Mm-hmm.
if the branch were to break, right? I don't believe in the branch. I believe in my wings.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where our peace can come into. The world is going to throw us broken branches all the time, but our wings have always allowed us to fly through the situation. When you have men that come to work with you, you mentioned starting with your work with first mothers and then other women, and then the natural pull and the allure towards working with men in both directions. What has been a common trend or a recurring trend or theme for the pain point in which men are coming to you for?
So I work with a lot of men that they're really seeking to expand or up level in some way. And we always kind of wind it back to why you're not. Like, these are the limiting beliefs that you hold about yourself that are not allowing you to reach that next level. Um, a lot of men that are on a spiritual path come to work with me. That's kind of like, they've just kind of like had this like spark of they don't feel fulfilled by what they've been doing, what they've been building, what they've been chasing. And they have this like pull of there's more. I have a lot of that. Like, I feel an emptiness in me. Um, and it all kind of always comes back to, I always take it back to childhood, sometimes even
Yeah.
further. But I would say those are kind of common themes. Is a lot of them, I work with a lot of executive CEOs, entrepreneurs that are kind of like coming up against a block and they want to move past it, or spirituality and their newfound interest
Yeah.
in it.
What are some of trauma's greatest hits when, like, if you go back to the childhood, what are some of, I guess, the repeated, okay, we've seen this before, because I mean, I know a lot of us as men, we can hold on to shame,
Mm-hmm.
we can hold on to embarrassment, we can hold on to so much. When we unpack that childhood, and the reason I have a picture of my childhood self was because, and I know a lot of men use the excuse, and a lot of people in general use the excuse, I don't remember much
Mm-hmm.
from that age, I don't remember much of my childhood. That's BS. right? It's
It might
there,
not
it's
be,
locked
because
away.
some people to navigate difficult situations, some people disassociate, so they pull away. So some people actually might
Correct.
not have memories, and you actually don't need specific memories, you just need the feeling. And we often all
Mm,
have the feeling of like how we felt. Um, it really is because children see the world through black and white, and
mhm,
they take on a lot of narratives that aren't actually there. Like I said, I shared about how I took on the narrative of I need to overachieve, I need to be the golden child, the perfect daughter. That wasn't being said to me in my house. That
yeah,
wasn't the case. That was like how, as a middle child, I figured I would navigate the situation. And it was wrong. And a lot of these programs and protector parts come online and they work at a very young age, but they stop working as we become adults and we're navigating the adult world. Um,
mm,
I work with a lot of men that have very damaged relationships with their father, absent fathers, this with women as well, like feeling like their mothers were highly critical. It can be, it's a theme a lot. And there's also just sometimes not an exact thing. We're just going back and I believe that men especially, they feel the wound of separation when you go from like, I believe there's oneness with source. And then when you're born, you go through your birth and then you're separate. That's like an original core wound. And men in
mhm,
particular, I feel try to counter that pain by being like, look at all I can do for you. Like, I can build you this, I can create that. Like, they're just grasping at, like, look what I can do and achieve to secure my worth, my love in your
mm,
eyes. And just creating this sense in yourself that you are worthy, you are love. It's all within. It's like connecting again back to that heart, back to your
mhm.
soul, your higher self, whatever word you want to call it.
Coming up on our time here, really quick on something you said about the separation and the oneness for men. Do you think there's evidence or perhaps there's clues for young children growing up on how the world treats men?
I I do. I believe look at the school system. The school system's not designed for boys. It's not designed for boys to be
Mm,
boys. They want them to sit still at a desk for 6, 7 hours, and they're told that there's something wrong with them when they can't, when it's actually going against like their biological norm. Um, there's a way in which I worry about the narratives of trying to say this in a politically correct way, if you will, but the narratives of gender being an illusion, um, telling that to any young boy who's going through puberty and testosterone is surging through his body, like telling him that's not happening, that that's not real, that's not going to actually have anything to do with the changes in how he's now behaving. I think that is
mhm,
wrong. Um, I had issue with the Barbie movie, that phenomenon last year, because I kept seeing this phenomenon where there was not one positive portrayal of a man in that movie. Every man was incompetent, goofy. Like I children pick up on this. And I remember watching that movie and thinking like, would I be enjoying this if I had a son? Like I don't know. I
mm,
don't think I'd want my boy to see men being portrayed in this goofy, incompetent way where we can just disrespect them and laugh about it. And that doesn't mean
yeah,
I'm not all about girl power and the empowerment of the feminine, but I think we have it wrong. I think we don't need to tear men down in order to build women up. I think that men, the rising of the feminine consciousness, which you referenced, that's happening. And that's actually been foretold in many prophecies going back thousands and thousands of years. And the rising of the feminine consciousness requires the rising of the masculine consciousness to hold. Again, it's the container, it's the riverbanks. And women don't feel safe in a society where men are belittled, degraded, disrespected. Like, it's not serving for us and it really isn't serving for you. And I think children are deeply intuitive and children are deeply aware. And little boys pick up on the subtle ways in which they're told they're bad and wrong for wanting to sword fight or rough play or not sit still at a desk for hours at the age of 5. So, yeah,
Yeah.
I think they pick up on it.
Yeah. Beautifully said, Melissa. And I want to make sure that those watching, those who feel compelled to reach out and work with you, have a way to do so. So I first want to ask, what are the links, sources, or socials that they can reference in order to get in contact with you or see more of your stuff?
Yeah, thank you. My website is melissalegette.com and my Instagram is Melissa_Legette. You need that underscore because somebody beat me to Melissa Legette, just that. But she got it before I was married, so she can have it. It's fine.
Yeah, we'll let her borrow it for now.
Mhm.
We'll let her borrow it for now. I'll have those in the show notes to minimize any confusion for
Thank
anybody.
you.
So that should be perfect for them to just simply easily open that up, or the description if you guys are watching on YouTube. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. I'm going to ask you to do it again, but just had the opportunity to. Last question, Melissa. It's usually the heaviest, which is why I save it for last. But what is something that you've seen or something that's happened to you that shapes the way you view the world as a woman?
As a woman, honestly, it's been my awakening to the masculine that has really shaped how I am now as a wife, as a mother, as a woman. I treat every man on my path as capable and I show respect to them. And I never tell a man how he should be a man, even as a coach. Nope, don't do it. Not once. um, I don't believe that's my role. I don't believe it's going to serve him and it's not going to serve me. I shine a path, I bring awareness to, but only you know how to discern the best path forward for you. And I'm only ever going to, again, shine that light and hold that space for you to do that.
Well, I appreciate the work that you do, and I encourage everybody that feels compelled to do so to connect with you even further and continue the conversation. Intuitive guide and inner transformation coach dedicated to helping others connect with their inner wisdom and true purpose. Melissa Le Gette, thank you so much for being on the
Thank
podcast.
you. This was incredible.
Absolutely. I'm going to share some of the gems you left along the way really quick because I like to take notes and make sure that for anybody who's driving, cleaning, or working out while listening can still get some of the nuggets that you left. Masculine in the women and feminine in the men. For anybody that's listening, we hold both
Mhm.
energies, and it's our ability to bring wholeness within us that can really give us the gifts that this world has to provide. Wanted my voice to be the strongest. That was something powerful you said that I had to write down when becoming a parent, how so many voices can come and give us advice. But that's also true for life. A lot of men, even growing up, and even for women, you have people telling you how to do this, how to do that. And so many times we grow up and we have these prescribed lives that others have given to us by telling us what to do. But it's our voices that should be the loudest to drive our lives. Darkness amplifies the light. I did a post a while ago that your shadow is proof that there is light to be had. And it's the embracement of the shadow that allows you to enjoy and the sun and the warmth of the light. And having the wholeness of the two is how you fully embrace who you truly are. You might hear a little Carl Jung influence in that. Heal. It's bringing more space in between the trigger and the response, right? And even having a response, because so many of us live life reacting.
Mhm.
Something happens and we react. But when we heal, we learn to pause, breathe, and response. Men, uh, lead with your mind, lead with your heart, lead with your gut. Embracing your whole masculine. You are the frame, being the riverbanks for the feminine to flow, for the men in the relationships, being grounded, holding that space and allowing your woman to flow in the household and holding that structure. Tell people how to love you. We talk about setting boundaries. We talk about knowing your values and what you're doing. Tell people how to love you. You teach people how to treat you. Tell them how to love you. And in peace and sovereignty. It's something we all want, something you might be looking for. Melissa is more than happy to help. So be sure to hit the link in the show notes if you are looking for that peace and sovereignty. If you enjoyed this episode, hit that like button and hit that subscribe button because you know you want to get more of this fire each and every single week. Share this with somebody that you know can get value from it as well. And as always, make sure you leave us a rating to let us know how we're doing. Everybody wants the sunshine, but we don't want the rain. But you can't get the pleasure without first the pain. Let's grow.